What's up, guys? Welcome back to my live stream. Just give me 1 second here to make sure that everything is looking good and we'll get started. All right. All right, I think we're ready. Hey guys, welcome back to my live stream. I'm Hero Serrano and I develop game engines. And in this live stream, I usually like to share everything that I know about game engine development. I either do so during on live streams or when I upload videos, teaching you again everything that I know about game engine development. Now in this live stream, I'm gonna change the format a little bit. For the past live streams, I've been basically coding and then answering some questions, but in this live stream, I'm gonna change the format where I'm just gonna talk about a particular topic and then do a small Q&A session at the end of that talk. So the main topic that I want to talk about today is what mistakes you should not do as a new indie game engine developer. What mistakes you should avoid. So without further ado, guys, let's get into the whole talk. So one of the first things that I think you should avoid is working in isolation. You have no idea how complicated it is to develop a game engine. The architecture of a game engine is very complex. And one thing that you should avoid is trying to reinvent the wheel, right? And if you work in isolation, you will not have access to the information that somebody else may already know, or what things you should not focus on as you are developing your game engine. So this is something that happened to me for the first 3 years of my game engine development. I just worked in isolation. I was basically not asking for help, mainly because whenever I did ask once, for help, people turned me down. But the second thing is like I just didn't feel I needed help from anybody at all. But that was a huge mistake because again, I ended up working on algorithms that were not useful at all, and I ended up wasting a lot of time. But now, there's a Discord server that I started, a community of indie game engine developers, which where you are more than welcome to join. And believe me, ever since I started this community, I have learned a lot from them. And they have shared with me a lot of tips, right? As a matter of fact, I wanted to implement an infinite grid in my game engine, and one of my members posted an article where he actually that he read and he implemented a grid. And I was able to get that done in a day, right? If I wouldn't have had such friendship, right, and such community, I would have still trying to implement such a grid, right? So whatever you do as an indie game engine developer, do not work in isolation. Find a community of friends that can help you. Find a community of people that have done this in the past that can really help you and guide you. Another thing that happened to me is that when I was implementing my collision detection system, I spent a lot of time implementing this particular algorithm called EPA. I don't really know the full name, but the acronym is EPA. And that was a complex algorithm to implement. Well, in the end, I ended up not using it because it was not useful for my case, right? And I spent months on that, right? So just whatever you do not develop a game engine in isolation. Join a community, join our Discord server. You're more than welcome to join. And that will help you tremendously, believe me. Now, number 2, the second mistake that you should avoid making is trying to make the perfect engine, the perfect engine architecture, the perfect algorithm when you are starting out. See, when you are starting out, you are, in that phase of trying to figure things out, right? How everything work and how they all connect together, right? Game engine development requires you to develop different components, right? Different systems. And as you are developing them, right? Not only do you need to understand how they work, but you also need to know how they communicate with the other components, right? Um, so there's a lot for you to learn, and there is so many things that you do not know yet. It's basically you do not know what you don't know, right? So if you spend some too much time on one particular component and trying to make it perfect, you are wasting valuable time where you can instead be focusing on implementing the other component and then the other component and then trying to make them work together. It's like when you are building, when you're putting together like a desk, right? You don't want to tighten the bolts, right? Like the screws tightly until you know that the whole desk is already standing and then you know that everything is level. Then you want to tighten the screws. Same thing with game engine development, right? Do not have the mentality that you need to have the perfect engine the first time around. It's not efficient, right? Because in the end, you may have to rewrite many things that you wrote in the beginning. And I'm telling you this because I did that with the rendering system and my physics system not long ago. I'll say like about 6 months ago, I ended up rewriting most of my rendering system and the physics system as well. Why? Well, because when I wrote those systems, I didn't know enough about computer graphics. I didn't know enough about game engine development. I didn't know what I didn't know. I didn't know the problems that were going to come about when I was going to develop a game and test my game with my game engine. It was only later on that I realized like the problems, right? And it was not problems in my code. It was the lack of knowledge that I had, right? I was still missing pieces and bits of knowledge. Luckily, members in my Discord server pointed those, that lack of knowledge, and I was able to go and fix them, which was really cool. So another reason why you should join my Discord server, which by the way, the link to my server is in the description of this live stream. So again, feel free to join. Number 3. Do not overcomplicate things, and this one ties with point number 2, right? Do not overcomplicate things in the beginning. Don't do that. Take the easy route in the beginning, and by that, what I mean is this. For example, when I was implementing my mathematics engine, I decided, and I do not know why, but I decided that I wanted to implement quaternions and dual quaternions in my game engine. I basically wanted all of the transformations to be dealt by the dual quaternions, right? I didn't need to do that. That was just me trying to overcomplicate things, because I could have just used vectors and matrices and that was it. And move on. But no, I decided to use these other, mathematical operations, which made things a lot more complicated. In the end, it was just a waste of time at that point, of time, right? Because in the end, before I would send the data up to the GPU, I had to convert the quaternions back to matrices, right? So it was a waste back then. I'm glad I implemented the quaternions because I really like how they work. I don't have to deal with gimbal lag and all of that stuff. But at that time when I was learning, I felt that quaternions had slowed me down tremendously. And that is something that you should not do. Again, when you're learning, when you're implementing your game engine, don't overcomplicate things. Just focus on the system. Make sure that the system works good enough so that you can move on to the next component. And once you have several components working together, then you can, add more complexity, make your components more efficient, right, etc. So let's get to number 4. And again, guys, if you have any questions, feel free to ask them in the chat. I'm gonna have a small Q&A session after this talk. So, feel free to post them, and I will answer them. So number 4, this is something that I tell not only game engine developers but any developers, right? Do not code, do not program in front of your computer. All right. Many people try to come up with the logic, with the whole implementation in front of the IDE, in front of the computer, with a keyboard and the mouse, right? And I think that leads to a lot of bugs in your implementation, right? My suggestion is that you should always, have a notebook, right? And basically just have, a bunch of, scribbles, right? In your notebook, where you are coming up with implementation that you want to have in your system, right? Get a piece of paper, a pen, and just write down your ideas, scribble your ideas, scribble the flow of the logic, right, that you want to implement. And then, try to think of any corner cases that may come about with your implementation. Believe it or not, I have been doing this for a long time, and number one, the speed of I spend less time in front of the computer, like implementing the code, because I already know what I'm going to write. I already know what I'm going to code, right? All of that code has already been engineered on my notebook. All what I do is transfer that idea into code, right? And that has helped me. Number one, increase the how the speed of my game engine development, and I deal with less code, right? Something that I really think everybody should do, not just indie game engine developers, but anyone that is in the development engineering world. Get a piece of paper, a pen, a pencil, a calculator if you want to need one, and just write down your logic on the piece of paper. Scribble the whole flow of your idea. And again, it's going to help you tremendously. You have no idea. Which is cool, because by the time you get in front of the computer, you should be able to listen to music, watch Netflix, right? Watch, a soccer game, and you can be coding away, right? Because you already know what you need to do. You don't need to be thinking about how to do things. Now, point number 5. And this is something that I guess, all human beings have a problem with, right? And we all need to work on this. But my point is that do not compare your game engine to others, right? That's not good, all right? You should not compare your beginnings to someone else's middle, right? You should not compare your game engine to my game engine, and I should not compare my game engine to the cool game engines that you can see in my Discord server, right? There are several game engine developers in my server that have amazing game engines, right? They look amazing. And if you are new, you should not compare your game engine to theirs, right? Because you are in a different phase, right? You are barely starting out. You should look at those game engines as inspirations, as as your goal, right? To one day have them look like that. But don't let that comparison keep you down and basically demotivate you from pursuing your goal on developing your game engine. Actually, I think I do have a video on how the whole evolution of my game engine. And if you look at how my game engine started, it looked like sad, right? But slowly but surely, my game engine has improved, and even now, this new version that I'm working on, which hasn't been released, it's a lot better. It's a lot cooler. Has so many things now. But again, that has taken me a lot of work, and or what I want to say is, don't get demotivated. I don't even know if that is a word, demotivated or unmotivated, to keep working on your game engine because of the comparison. Now, point number 6. And then before I get to point number 6, again, if you are new to my live stream, I'm Hero Serrano and I develop game engines, and I tend to go live on YouTube and upload videos and share everything that I know about game engine development. And in this live stream, what I'm talking about is basically the mistakes that you should avoid as an indie game engine developer, as a beginner indie game engine developer, more precisely. So let's talk about point number 6. Avoid adding fluff in the beginning of your game engine development, right? Again, do not add things that are not going to add a value to your game engine in the beginning. What do I mean by this, right? If you are starting out and you are starting out by implementing your rendering system, right? Don't go ahead and implement a particle system on top of that, right? Yes, it's cool. Yes, you are going to need it. But at that point, it's not a need, it's a want, right? And it's just wasting your time. Instead of focusing on implementing the particle system or implementing the camera system or implementing whatever, right? Try to understand that there are other components that are more essential than a particle system in your game engine. So have a focused mind, right? Start out with the mathematics engine if you want to start with a mathematics engine. Then move with that to the rendering system, and then have the physics and collision system. Once you have them complete and setting all good to go, then go ahead and add, stuff on top of that. But don't branch out, right? Because you are going to lose focus, and it doesn't make sense for you to go from the rendering to the particle to a camera and then to whatever, on and on and on and on. And no, don't do that. And if you don't want to do a physics system, then cool. Then try to make your rendering system more efficient, right? Try to work on getting rid of all of the memory leaks that you may have, right? Stuff like that. So avoid adding fluff into your game engine in the beginning. I'm not saying don't add them. Yes, you should add them because people expect them, that a game engine has those components. But be very mindful on when you are going to add them. Number 7, and this is a problem that I am experiencing right now. Make sure that when you're starting out with your game engine development, to have a game genre in mind, a game type in mind, right? Make sure that your game engine is going to be precisely made for a particular type of game, right? Why? Well, because you are a solo indie game engine developer, and if you try to develop a generic game engine, it's going to be very, very, very complicated. So you will have more chances of success if you try to focus on one particular type of games. This is something that I have experienced when I started my game engine development. It was more about the educational. It had more about educational purpose. So my game engine was very generic, right? And then over time, I realized that I needed to make my game engine more focused into a particular type of games, because different systems are going to require like different, let's say, implementations or calibrations for for a particular game to work fine, perfectly. Like I've made several mistakes, right? For example, one of the mistakes that I've seen is that since I like to develop soccer games, right? I should have spent more time on implementing the AI for my soccer game, the artificial intelligence system, more than the collision detection system in this example, right? I spent a year working on the collision detection system, right? But many of the features that I have in my collision detection doesn't really apply for my soccer game, right? Not yet, at least, right? But I do know that it would be cool if my game engine had more AI capabilities for a soccer game, since a soccer game involves a lot of AI. right? So make sure that when you are starting out to have a particular game type in mind, right? FPS or sports games, RPG, whatever. As long as you have something in mind, then you're good. Don't go out and have a generic game engine. Not only because you cannot, I mean, it's not that you cannot do it. Yes, you can do it, but um, you're going to have more chances of success by being more focused. And the final point that I want to make, guys, is, and I know you are not gonna like this, and I know I don't like it, but we have to do this. Is that do not forget, do not ignore documenting your game engine. Do not ignore adding documentation to your game engine. Do not ignore to add documentation to your API of your game engine. Please do not ignore that. That is something that you need to constantly keep updating your documentation because as your game engine grows, guess what's going to happen? You are going to forget how to initialize a particular system, how to initialize a particular entity, how to call a particular API of the parameters, or so many things that you are going to forget. Believe me. In the beginning, it may not be a big deal, but as your game engine grows and becomes more complex, you are going to realize that you're going to hate yourself if you did not work on your documentation. It's something that more than anything that you should do. And I know that you hate it because I hate it too, but it is essential because you're going to forget your own API. That is going to happen, believe me. If you are developing your game engine using C++, then you can use Toxigen. Toxigen is a nice little application. I hate the output, but it is a really nice application. It works beautifully. It gets the job done, right? So don't forget, don't ignore the documentation, guys. Seriously. All right, guys. That's all what I wanted to talk about basically in this live stream. I hope this live stream was helpful to you. If you are looking for some books to help you with your game engine development, well, guess what? If you go to my website, and let me show you this actually. If you go to my website and you click on books right here, here you are going to see the list of books that help me get started and that can help you get started. Like basically the first section of the books right here are the books that I used, that I recommend that you read to get started. It will teach you everything about linear algebra, this particular book right here. And these two books about rendering engines, and no, not about rendering engines, but more about computer graphics and OpenGL. And then these three books here, they deal more when you are developing your own rendering, your own physics system. So, make sure to go to my website, heroserrano.com, and there you go. Now, thank you guys so much for joining the live stream. If you have any questions, feel free to send me a message on my Discord server. I'll be happy to answer them. I should be back again on Wednesday with another live stream. So, if you have any questions, make sure to write them down and so that you can ask them while I'm live on my channel. Again, guys, do not forget to subscribe to this channel. Click the like button so it gets promoted by YouTube, and also do not forget to join my Discord server. Thank you guys so much, and guess what? I'll see you again on Wednesday. Bye, guys.